Colonel West, it is a blessing to have you with us again today. I thoroughly enjoyed the last time you and I were able to visit.
Well, it's a pleasure being back with you, Jamie, and thanks for having me on.
Because we have done this, what I thought we might kind of open with today is if you would just want to kind of share your heart a little bit, some of the things you've done that you believe qualify you for this incredible position.
Well, I think the only thing that really does qualify you for being in a position like this is that you want to continue to serve, to sacrifice, and commit to the principles and values that made, the United States of America what it is, and of course the great state of Texas. And so, having spent 22 years service in the United States Army, retiring as a lieutenant colonel in 2004 out of Fort Hood, Texas, having been a member of the United States House of Representatives, and most recently having been the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, I think that I understand, every aspect when you talk about economic security, energy security, national security, and also the legislative process. And what is so important for us to get passed here in Texas is the legislative priorities of the Republican Party of Texas, which for some odd reason are not getting passed here. So I understand how things operate down in Austin, or not operate, as we have seen recently. And we've just got to turn the corner and get it back to the rule of law and making sure that we protect Texans and their rights, their freedoms, and their liberties, and their property.
Absolutely. Well, and that brings up one of my questions. We are looking at a situation the last two legislative sessions. We've had Republican control of the House, the Senate, and the governorship, and yet we have been unable to accomplish the things that have been on the Republican platform. What are we talking about? What do we do with these individuals that have been Republican in name only in this hour?
Well, I think that's why this election cycle is so important in the primary, which the early voting started Monday of this week and goes to the 25th of February. And then, of course, Election Day is the 1st of March. This is where you get to pick your team. And so often we hear people that want to be more moderate or actually be liberal Republicans say that the only way we can win is that we reduce the strength of our message. The only way that we can win is that we try to accommodate, appease, negotiate, and compromise and acquiesce to the progressive socialist left. I don't see it that way. I think that when we stand on our principles and values, that we win. And now we have the opportunity to vote out those individuals that don't believe as such. And so you're right. When you have a Republican governor, a lieutenant governor, or the Speaker of the House, why do we have Democrats that are being appointed to be chairman of state House committees? Why are we not able to get those legislative parties passed and curtail executive overreach, taxpayer-funded lobbying, school choice, making sure we protect our monuments and our markers? Why would we say in our election integrity bill that voter fraud is no longer a felony offense? It's just a misdemeanor offense. But the most heinous thing that I see happening is that why can't we end child gender modification procedures here in the state of Texas? We shouldn't have our children being put on hormone puberty blockers or actually going through physical castration surgeries. These are our kids. But yet there was a recent report that came out from the Katy Christian media outlet and source, and we all know it, that the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House got quite lucrative contributions from gender modification clinics here in the state of Texas.
Are you serious? Okay, would you repeat that one more time for our listeners? Our governor, our lieutenant governor, and our
Speaker of the House
received sizable.
Yes, we're talking about in the millions. All of them aggregated together. I think it's like $2.4 million aggregated together of campaign contributions from gender modification clinics here in the state of Texas. So you just follow the money. So if it's more important, and the governor always boasts he has $50-60 million in the bank. Well, now we know what type of people he gets it from. He gets it from he gets it from wind and solar packs while Texans are freezing like we did last year. So we need to have someone that's concerned about our legislative priorities, concerned about these critical moral issues, and not so much concerned about the check that he gets pushed into his pocket, because then he is owns not to the people, but to the people that wrote the check.
Absolutely. That's I may have mentioned it last time, but I'm afraid between bribery and blackmail, we have an issue. You were out here for our forum recently. I certainly enjoyed that evening, got to speak with you. I mentioned that night in the prayer the Lord had put on my heart that Jethro exhorted Moses to choose out leaders, and he gave the 4 qualities. And he said, these are what we're looking for. We're looking for able men. We're looking for men that fear God. We're looking for men that will stand for truth. And the last one, huge in this arena in which we live, men that are not given to covetousness. So, Governor, how do we deal with that? How do we slug that in the face?
You slug it in the face by the people getting involved. They have to get informed, better educated, and better activated. Benjamin Franklin said to Mrs. Powell on Constitution Day, 1787, that it's a republic if you can keep it. And so if we continue to allow this political elite class that is controlled by woke, corporate, oligarchies and fascist oligarchies, some of them, or some of these other special interests, when you see that we could not curtail the taxpayer-funded lobbying that is going on down in Austin, that tells you where the problem is. So now here we are in a primary election cycle, and it's up to the people. And normally in a primary election cycle and an off presidential election cycle period, you don't get that large amount of voter participation. So guess what happens? You get the government that you deserve. So it is up to the people that are watching your show, up to the people that are out there to be better informed on these issues, to start holding people's feet accountable and look at their voting records. Everything that we're talking about right now, Jamie, their campaign contributions, their voting records, that's public information. And all it takes is someone having the dedication to do their due diligence and study some of these things. I mean, we'll sit down and look at the Kardashians or look at sporting events and all these type of things. Well, the LA Rams and the who did they play?
Bengals, the Bengals. Mm-hmm.
The Bengals are not going to save Texas. We got Oprah Winfrey book clubs. Oprah Winfrey is not going to help you save Texas. Kim Kardashian, or the cute little video of the cat playing the piano, that's not going to help you save Texas. So people need to start getting engaged and getting involved and stop going out to all these clubs and parties and meetings, sit around and having a nice little meal and clapping your hands, but there's no call to action. My call to action for people out there, start looking at the campaign contributions listings, start looking at the voting records, and make your decision based upon, are they serving you or are you serving them?
Man. So Colonel, how do you see the race shaping up today?
Well, I will tell you, we've got some very encouraging poll numbers. Last poll that we took was January 1st of February, and it had us at 42.6%, the governor at 34.1%. That's with a 2.49% margin of error, a 95% confidence level, and it was 1,529 likely Republican primary voters. Those were the respondents to that poll, so it's very strong. But the thing is that I don't pay attention to the numbers that happen right now.
Right.
Most numbers are on March the 1st. But it is encouraging to be in that type of position, and it's inspiring to others because so many people, they pay attention to the campaign coffers. You can't beat Abbott, he's got $60 million. Well, they look at the fact that he's a sitting incumbent governor that's been there for 8 years, and prior to that, 12 years as Attorney General, prior to that, State Supreme Court. But I look at the size of the fight in your heart. And right now, I don't see a fighter in Governor Abbott, because if we had a fighter, we would not have gender modification procedures on our children. We would not have a collapse on our border. We would not have the property tax situation that's going out of control. We would not have these vaccine mandates causing Texans to lose their jobs. And so I'm a fighter, and Governor Abbott is not.
Well, let me ask this, since you're at that point. What do you believe is the number one credential that you will be able to bring to this position, the governor of the state of Texas, to deal with the issues that we currently are being flooded and overrun by?
Because on 31 July 1982, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And for 22 years, I was willing to lay down my life for that oath. And in January 2023, when I take the oath, to the Texas state constitution, I will be willing to lay down my life for that oath. That's the level of commitment that I believe in. That's the level of sacrifice that I'm willing to make, because I'm not here to be served. I'm here to serve the citizens of the great state of Texas. You know, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, Republican, Democrat, Independent, doesn't matter. It means standing on the rule of law and what's right and what's true. And that is how you govern, not try to rule over people, which, again, that's what I think Governor Abbott has a little bit of a misunderstanding about, because edicts, orders, mandates, and decrees are not law.
Exactly. In fact, rather tyrannical.
They are tyrannical.
They're absolutely tyrannical. Colonel, if you were to step into that office today, and we've already alluded to the number of rhinos that are present. We've established the fact that today the Republicans are the majority in each of the positions. What do you do in office? How do you plan? How do you see effectuating what we need at the border today?
Well, that's the job number one, is to protect the sovereignty of the great state of Texas. And I would not have our National Guard troops down there without any mission, without any task and purpose, without, having the proper amounts of equipment. They're exchanging body armor. They're exchanging ammunition because they don't have enough. They don't have the right rules of engagement. They're being fired upon by the cartels, who I would designate as a transnational narco criminal terrorist organization. Give them the rule of engagement that they can return fire. We would enable them and our constitutional law enforcement officers, being our sheriffs and our constables, to arrest, detain, and deport individuals, since the federal government is not doing it. These 501c3 organizations, we revoked their licenses: Catholic Charities, Lutheran Ministries. We stopped the taxpayer-funded benefits to people that are here illegally. We create a border control zone, and we take control of that border. We put our troops on the major infiltration routes, and we interdict that flow of these illegals coming into the great state of Texas. But the thing is, I will call a special session and bring people back in. And number one, they're going to pass a law that outlaws vaccine mandates in the state of Texas. And then we're going to finish up the legislative priorities for the Republican Party of Texas. We're going to end child gender modification. We're going to pass school choice, taxpayer-funded lobbying, protect our monuments. And we're going to restore voter fraud back to being a felony offense and not just a misdemeanor offense in the state of Texas. So if I were to be in that position right now, those are the things that I would immediately start doing.
Fantastic. What do you see Texas needing to do in this hour with the over-the-top federal overreach?
Texas needs to go back and understand that in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, it lists the 18 duties, responsibility, tasks, whatever you want to call it, for the federal government. And the federal government is getting way outside of their box, because the Constitution of the United States of America is a restraining document on the powers of the federal government. That's why we've got to restore the 10th Amendment, where it says all of those powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states and to the people. So we have to reassert states' rights, state sovereignty, and that understanding that we live in a constitutional republic and the system of federalism. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "Free and independent states created these United States of America," not the opposite way. So that's what we have to reestablish, that right and true relationship between the federal government, the states, and the individual citizens.
Well, and along that line, could you talk to us just a little bit, because I've heard you share some wonderful things concerning the Federalist Papers. Could you address that?
Well,
specifically, you had given. I heard you talking at one time, and you gave 5 specific things out of the Federalist Papers that are absolutely imperative even for this hour.
Well, I think you have to hold the federal government accountable for what they're supposed to do according to the rule of law. You have to understand that the Supremacy Clause only exists when the federal government is doing those or taking actions which are pursuant thereof to the Constitution. And so you cannot have someone that is up there casting down edicts and orders, like I said, and mandates. You cannot say we're going to cease the building of a border physical barrier or wall by executive order. That is an appropriation. And the only way you can change that is to go back through the legislative process, through the House and the Senate, to pass a new law that, overrides or amends that previous amendment or appropriation, I'm sorry. And so I think it's those type of things we have to look at. And again, the most important thing is reestablishing that relationship. The individual is supreme and sovereign over the institution of government in the United States of America. And when you look at the Federalist Papers, you look at the Declaration, you look at the Constitution, that's what's established. Their life, their liberty, and pursuit of happiness, or John Locke talked about your natural rights, which means life, liberty, and property. And therefore, we need to get back to understanding those natural rights that don't come from man, i.e. government, they come from the Creator God. We have to reestablish that. And that's why, I'm on the road with an outstanding Texas State House candidate, Nubia Divine, and she talks about, how we have just gotten off track with this whole separation of powers.
Absolutely.
The separation of church and state. And
State.
so there's nowhere written in the Declaration, Federalist Papers, of the Constitution, as Nubia articulates, that there's a separation of church and state. It's a concept that Thomas Jefferson wrote in a letter to the Danbury Baptist Convention. But yet the body of Christ has been really tricked in believing they can't engage in the political process in the United States of America, that they have to sit around and just take it. Well, your very first liberty that you have in the Constitution is the freedom of religion and the free exercise thereof. And what was the very first thing the government sought to shut down in March of 2020, going to the COVID thing? It was churches, not Home Depot, not dadgum, Lowe's, not even dadgum McDonald's, okay?
Right.
Not even stores, but they shut down churches. And so we have got to get the body of Christ involved, and the body of Christ needs to go out and reread those documents and understand that there's no such thing as separation of church and state. What it means is that we will never have a head of state that is also the head of church in the United States of America. No established religion, no established church.
Absolutely. Absolutely. On that front, what do you see? Because I believe one of the places that we have been so undermined is through our educational system. So what do you see for Texas education to right this ship?
Well, first of all, we don't have a system of education in Texas. We have a system of indoctrination. Texas is 46 or 47 out of 50 in education in the United States of America. 67% of fourth graders don't read at grade level in the state of Texas. But yet we continue to support this social emotional learning. We still have these independent school districts where you have cultural Marxism being taught. That's what I call it, being it critical race theory, cultural competency action plan, whatever. It's cultural Marxism. And so we need to cut off the funding to these ISDs that want to indoctrinate our children. To include, we need to make sure that our Board of Regents, we don't have leftists, progressive, socialists, communist, statists on these Board of Regents that oversee our colleges and universities. But I need people, and I think Texas needs people, to get out there and run for school board, to get out there and run for the Texas State Board of Education. A lot of Texans don't even know what the Texas State Board of Education is or what they do.
Right.
But that 15th board really is responsible for deciding what the curriculum and what the books are that the rest of the country decides to use. And so we've got to understand, be more involved in and restore a system of education that starts at the local level. The federal government has no jurisdiction in the realm of education. It's a state and local level issue, and we have got to reassert that and make sure we don't have this leftist indoctrination.
Well, once again, we've allowed the bureaucracies, whether it be the state education board, the Texas education board, the national education board. I mean, that's what we've allowed. In fact, and when you take a stand, you can turn things around. My wife served on the Ector County Independent School District Board here, and they brought Bible curriculum back into the schools here. ACLU sued the district. We took them on. First priority, Kelly over there, took them on, and we won. But that's what has to happen. Exactly. Exactly.
And one of the things is that a lot of homeschool parents worried about, government intervention. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to support the homeschoolers, and I'll support them making sure that they train up their children in the way that they should go. And they are teaching them the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, the history, the civics, and give them that foundation. So, when you talk about education, the first person to ever talk about state control of education was Karl Marx in the Communist Manifesto. Right. And look what it's here in the United States. We've got more and more government intervention into the education of our children, to the point now where the government believes that parents don't have a right in deciding what their children are being taught, or whether or not parents can decide my child doesn't need to be wearing a mask to school.
Absolutely. They have no right whatsoever. Colonel, is there anything from your heart at this point in time that you would like to share with the people that's burning?
Get out and be engaged. Get out there and vote. There have been too many young men and women who have sacrificed their lives so that we can live in this incredible nation and in this incredible state. And when you don't participate in the electoral process, when you don't go out there and do your due diligence to make sure that you have someone that is representing you and not someone that's trying to lord over you with a little L, then we see ourselves in the situation that we find ourselves in here in the great state of Texas. So I just want people to be informed. I want them to be educated. I want them to be engaged. I want them to be activated and get out and vote. Vote for West.
Absolutely. One more thing. I was reading just this morning. This last consumer price index showed that our inflation is running about 7.5% over. And I looked, and they said, well, honestly, if they had not changed the model 24 times since 1980, we'd be more at 15% plus. This is another issue coming down on our society in this hour. What's your answer to financial issues?
Well, I think the answer to financial issues, we got to be stronger at the state level. I think it's important that we make sure that we protect the individual economic freedom of the people here in the state of Texas. That's why when you look at Bitcoin and some of the other cryptocurrencies, I support that because, right now, you look at what happened up there in Canada, where all of a sudden the government is going using the bank accounts or taking away contributions to these truckers. So we need to have a financial means or system that does not allow the government to control every aspect of your lives to the point where they'll starve you out. Who would have ever thought that we hear or see these type of things in the 21st century? So without a doubt, I think that the Texas economy needs to be strong. We need to make sure our oil and gas industry is strong. We need to look at more commodities that we can produce, consume, and export. And it all comes back to curtailing the government spending here in the state of Texas. We've seen a 19% increase since 2015 in the budget here, $47 billion. That money needs to get back into the pockets of Texas taxpayers.
Absolutely. So on that front, we've alluded to it, but back to property taxes. What is your thought? What is your plan?
First and foremost, you got to look at all the fraud, waste, and abuse and inefficiencies and ineffective programs and agencies down in the Austin government. And you got to, reduce that. You got to eliminate it. You have to get off a baseline budget system and go to a zero-based budget system so that we can, again, find more savings there in the government and put that back to the Texas taxpayer so that we can pay down their burden as far as the state level taxes by way of property tax. But also we need to move to a consumption-based tax, and we can do that very quickly in the 88th legislative session. That's probably the fairest tax you can have out there. Not taxing people on their income, not taxing people in their property. Texans need to be able to own their own home, but taxing people based upon what they're going out and consuming, what they're going out and buying. And that's the system of taxation we had in America prior to 1917, when we created the personal income tax, which was supposed to be temporary and stay at 2%.
You and I spoke to this the last time we visited. I believe that strength and courage are going to be required in the individuals that take this charge in this hour. Of course, I've listened to some of your conditioning. You get up early and run early and run a long ways. I appreciate that. But, one of the things that I believe that I've seen very clearly is individuals have got to take that charge by God to Joshua, that it was imperative that we find ourselves meditating upon the Word of God. And therein we will find these things. We will find the integrity that we must have in order to occupy and hold these offices and effectuate the changes and things that you and I are talking about today.
No, you're absolutely right. And you bring up a great point. And I guess it's a good closing point because right here around my neck is my Shield of Strength dog tag. that I wore, in my time in the military, and I keep, reapplying and getting another one because they get worn out. But there is Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you, be strong and of good courage, for the Lord thy God shall never leave you nor forsake you. So that's around my neck every single day of my life, because I think that's what it requires, the strength and courage and the wisdom and discernment, which is what, Solomon asked for the Lord to bless him with. And that's how you have righteous governance. I'm sorry. That's how you have righteous leaders, not people that are out there just making sure that, I do what someone will write a check to me for. God does
Exactly.
not call the equipped. He equips those that he calls. And that's what
That's
I seek
exactly right.
to be.
Well, Colonel West, this has once again been a tremendous blessing. We wish you the very best for Mission Messiah Television. And if there's anything we can do, please let us know. The Lord bless you. The Lord be with you.
Thanks so much. And just continue to keep me and lift me up in prayer, Jamie. Thank you.
We are doing that.
All right. God bless.
All right. God bless. Welcome to Wow Warehouse. Are you ready for the cold, windy days to be behind us and the wonderful, beautiful spring begin to set in? Well, that's what we're ready for at Wow. And we have brought in more pots for your spring planting. We have brought in more gorgeous home decor pots for your new homes or your new patio areas. We have brought in new jewelry lines that are going to be so much fun this spring. And our new metal art selection, wow. You can have everything from metal flowers that you don't have to worry about killing with too much water or too little water. You can have our amazing spinners that just brighten up and bring a lot of movement into your yard. There are just so many things that wow for you to come and look at. We have a number of new Christian gift lines that we're very excited about that individuals have really been enjoying for birthday gifts, for wedding gifts, and for any number of things. So we just hope to see you soon over at WOW as the temperature changes. The Lord bless you and keep you. WOW, 815 North Grandview in Odessa.